This session involves Chris Ulliott, Chief Information Security Officer from NatWest, and Fiona Miller, Head of Security Architecture for NatWest. I'm not going to prolong the agony for them any longer, but they want to talk about actually building security into the architecture of your system. So give them a hand just to start them off. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Lovely to see you all. I won't take it, well, I'm trying to work out, do we not have the same drawer as Microsoft, or is it the fact that we got the lunchtime slot? I won't debate that one for far too long. I'm Chris Ulliott. I'm the CISO for NatWest and have accountabilities for ensuring that we deliver and operate a secure bank across all of the legal entities that we have across the globe. And Fiona?
I head up the security architecture function, so we look after security assessments for projects. We do security consultancy, standards and security control patterns for teams. And basically I've been working in technology for almost 25 years between technical teams and security, so a bit of an experience of both. So.
Cool. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of a health warning. We're going to talk a bit about how we embed security into the end-to-end engineering process and why it's really important and what the benefits are. But I don't want you to think that we are preaching as if we've cracked this. I don't think anyone can stand up and say they've got DevSecOps or SecDevOps, depending which way you want to prioritize it, absolutely sorted. What we're going to talk about is the kind of like the NatWest vision of the future. So you're going to get a bit of an insight into what I and my leadership are trying to do across the bank. And it's based on, collectively between us, over 50 years of working in technology teams across multiple organizations. So what you're going to hear about today is kind of our North Star. We've done some of this. We are doing other bits. But ultimately, the challenge is that a lot of this is cultural. And I think, as any of you will know, cultural change is really difficult. It takes time. But one of the things that I've managed to do as CISO of a banking group is get buy-in from all of my technology peers. And they're all behind this vision. And as a result, we are starting to get some traction, and we're delivering much of what we're going to talk about in the next kind of 20, 25 minutes. And with that, over to you, Fiona.
Thank you. So there's a triangle we talk about in security, and basically secure, easy, cheap. Is it possible to have all three? Now, we don't think it is possible, but it's possible to get closer to being able to have all three, to be better at how you do projects and how you implement projects. If you go cheap and if you go easy, you quite often miss the security element, or you get stopped at the very end and you have to go back and you have to redo. So how can we make it easier for organizations that are implementing to try to get closer to what is the perfect model? You won't get all three, but you could get closer. How could you facilitate projects to deliver quickly at a reasonable cost and still be secure? How can you get teams of engineers building and coding and charging towards the end and getting that gold security star at the end of it and being able to go on to implementation happy with what they've done? There's lots of ways that we've come up with to progress that, and that's what we're going to present to you today.
So first of all, before we talk about technology, we're going to talk about humans. So a quick show of hands, who knows what a non-Newtonian fluid is? I've got quite a few. Sometimes I can see the NatWest folk at the front know this because they've heard this before. A non-Newtonian fluid, for those of you that don't know, is a particular type of fluid, of which custard is a really great example, where with impact, the fluid turns solid. And the reason why that's really important, or why I'm talking about it today, is that there's a company in, I think, Spain, who have redesigned a speed bump. And what they have done is, rather than using a solid speed bump, they've built what is essentially a water balloon, and they've filled it with a non-Newtonian fluid tuned to the speed limit of the road. And why I use that as an analogy is because it has a great effect on the way people drive. Because if you go at or below the speed limit, you hit something very soft and squishy. It moves out of the way. But the faster you go over the speed limit, the more you break the law, the harder the speed bump gets. And as a result of that, you get a real jolt. So there's kind of an easy path if you do the right thing, and a really hard path if you do the wrong thing. And that's what we aspire to do in NatWest as we build and develop how we apply security to the engineering processes. And what we recognize is that it's very rare that engineers do the wrong thing for malicious reasons. Quite often it's because they're under time pressure. They have to deliver. So what we have to do is we have to look at the human nature. Why is that the case? Why do humans not necessarily do the right secure thing by default? And if you've ever read the book Thinking Fast and Slow, you can see that actually it's built into our biology. We conserve brain energy and we try to do the simplest default action possible because that is what kept us alive when we were, many, many years ago. So we need to take that and engineer our processes, recognizing that that is a constraint on us as humans. So what we are trying to do is engineer our processes, work with our engineering teams, such that the default path is the easiest path that is also the secure path. So we sometimes have to put friction into the non-secure route, and we try to remove friction from the secure route. And if we can do that, we'll find, or we are finding, that our engineers build stuff secure by default. And what is interesting is that we spend huge amounts of money as an industry designing user interfaces so that our customers have easy journeys, but it's quite rare for us to put that effort on our internal processes. So if we want to make engineering easy, if we want to embed security, we need to look at those processes and our systems and the things our engineers use with exactly the same lens that we apply to our customers.
So in NatWest, most of the security that we implement in projects is at the end of the journey. In my last role and my last organisation, most of the security was done at the end of the journey. I suspect a lot of you are in the same boat. So you've got teams of people who work really hard, pulling together designs, starting to build, going through testing, getting all of the approvals all along the way, and then they get to the end and they hit that speed bump. And it becomes incredibly difficult if they haven't been secure all along the way. They could have rework, they could have delays through pen testing. It could take several weeks to get through that and then eventually get to implement. The concept of shift left doesn't mean we're going to move all of the security right back to the start of the process. What we're talking about is having that golden thread of security that runs through the entire life cycle of the project, from design to decommission. As we pull information from new security tools into our processes, this will cause friction initially with the projects as they learn to use the tools and they see the additional information that it pulls through. But as they learn to use the data that we provide them, they themselves, through ongoing training and usage of the tools, the friction will reduce. As they adapt to building securely and patching and fixing and remediating the issues as they see them through the life of the project, shift left then doesn't come at the expense of the right-hand side. We still want to ensure that they're secure before implementation, but we want them to get there in a much better manner. And we want to make sure that the system at the end of their process is suitably secure and ready to go live. So how can we make that happen in an easier way?
So this is where we've got a great advantage. The way that our engineers are working today is actually bringing lots of opportunities for us as a security team. So if you look at AGILE and DevOps, it's all about automating the development process. So if you have a really good CI/CD pipeline, there's loads of hooks that we as a security team can, and we're starting to, hook onto, and that generates lots of opportunities for us. Suddenly, we can see and instrument that pipeline and collect a lot of information about the state of a system as it's been built or a piece of software as it's been engineered. we can start to weave into those processes automatic code scanning. We can look at containers as they're being built. We can look at the cloud environments that they're being deployed to and maybe pull on their APIs to get information that's relevant for us in security. And if we can act on that in real time, we can actually start to build and help protect our engineering teams. And there's a whole load of data that you can collect, which I'll talk about shortly. But by doing that, we are working with our engineering teams. So actually, they like it because we're encouraging the use of the latest technologies, good, robust CI/CD pipelines, and we love it because we're starting to get greater visibility across the entire life cycle of a product or a solution or a piece of software. And that brings benefits to everybody. Having got that, what we're now starting to do is weave into those environments a set of guardrails that essentially protect engineers from themselves.
There's guardrails in everyday life. You probably come across lots of them on a daily basis and never really think about it. So we don't expect that every single person driving along the motorway is going to stick to the speed limit, not going to do anything silly, not drive to the road conditions. So on your motorway, there are guardrails. There's barriers in the middle of the road, barriers at the side of the road. So when accidents happen, they prevent them from being worse and ping you back into the road, so to speak. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about guardrails from a security point of view. In projects, we can effectively build in crash barriers. We can prevent technical accidents. We can prevent accidents causing a breach. Where someone's inadvertently opened up external access from their cloud environment, we can have guardrails that automatically remediate that and pull them back in, stop them from being able to do things that potentially could cause those security issues. They should auto-remediate rather than rely on an alert that maybe goes off at whatever time of the morning, relying on someone noticing the alert, getting out of their bed, remediating once they've been able to track down the person that's managing that account. It should just auto-remediate, and then you're back to a place of being secure. They should protect engineers from themselves. As we've mentioned already, no one's perfect. People are going to make mistakes, whether they're doing it knowingly or not. They quite often can do something that they think is perfectly acceptable, and it can cause a problem. We've worked really hard to identify those types of problems in our engineering space, in our cloud environment specifically. What are the things that we know that shouldn't be done on a daily basis, that shouldn't be just normal for our cloud environments? This is work in progress for us. We're still working through it, and we've got a long way to go, but we've already started putting in various guardrails that are working quite nicely in the environment, and we can see them backing out where someone does something by mistake. We can be sure that specific configurations won't be present in the build for a project once they get to the latter stages of the project, because bit by bit and all the way through, if they've tried to put in those types of configuration, making an S1 bucket external, anything at all like that, it just backs it out. And if they do really need it, then there's exceptions processes to open it up securely to make sure it's done in the correct manner. The data from our security tools, basically with this in place, will have fewer exceptions for us to deal with.
Now, I'm sure in fact, I know some of you do because I recognize a few faces. We're a bank, and you may or may not know, but we have one or two regulations that we have to comply with, and there's one or two expectations around how we do governance, both on how we run our technology, how we secure, and how we evidence that. And one of the things I used to hear a lot is that we can't do AGILE, we can't do DevOps, we can't do insert phrase because of the governance. We need to have robust processes. But one of the things that we are changing and we've discovered is that actually we have a lot of data. We have a lot of knowledge about what our engineers are doing, the environments that they're building, and actually this is an area where cloud deployments is really beneficial to us, there's a whole load of APIs that we can poll to get information about what is out on our estate. And we are finding that we can pull that data and we can start to almost do the governance in an automated way. There's huge amounts of data that in the past has just been dropping into /dev/null. And what we're starting to do now is collect that. I can see who checked in code. I can see who reviewed it. I can maybe put things in place to see who did the 4 eyes check. I can work out what information is coming out of the code scanning tools. Instead of asking people what they're building, I can poll their infrastructure as code instance and find out what they have actually built. So I'm starting to get to a point where we can take the claims that have been made, validate that against what has been deployed, and then in a fully automated way, do the required governance and approve that for deployment. And we're starting to hook our different systems together to pull that data. And it's quite surprising. I've been really surprised at how much of that data exists, but we never really looked for it. So in the past, where we expected engineers to fill out spreadsheets, online forms, telling us about what they were doing and getting approval to do stuff, and then we'd have a manual process going to validate that, we're discovering that most of that can be automated. We already know what is being built because it's there in the scripts. So why get an engineer to spend valuable hours filling in web forms or spreadsheets? So I would, if you've got this challenge and you have that kind of huge expectation around governance, I would encourage you all to go and look at your estate and see what information is already there. Because it turns out most of it is. You just need to find it, pull it together, verify it, and then you can make some fantastic decisions in a fully automated way, which has the bonus effect of removing some of the gates that are kind of expected of security. And anything that removes those gates, those hurdles that people have to get through, is hugely beneficial. And with that, you can start to build confidence in what your engineering teams are doing, and then, dare I say it, we can start to trust people.
So as mentioned earlier, we're not replacing security at the end with security at the start. And for any of my team who are in, we're not replacing security checks, full stop. We will use security throughout the life of the project. We will have a design stage. We will continue to check the design and make sure it's built in a secure manner. But we'll also ensure prior to implementation that projects have acted on the data that we're allowing them to see. We'll use cloud configuration security data. We'll use vulnerability management data. We'll use security testing data. These are all still required. And what we're hoping is that we can create a fast-track process for the projects who come along, and they do it right, and they do it in a secure manner, and they use the information, and they use the tools. So where they've got the information on their infrastructure, their vulnerabilities, we can potentially save some of those internal projects from having to go through expensive security testing, or at least to the extent that they had to do it previously. If we can evidence that they don't have critical vulnerabilities, they don't have high vulnerabilities, that they're patched up to the latest versions, then we can take that step out of the process and save the organisation some time, some money, and put that back into better use elsewhere. So we're hoping that with a fast-track process for some of our projects, it starts to simplify, and we get to spend our time looking at the things where they really need security's input to make a difference and make it secure. We remove the need to potentially conduct some testing. We remove the need for a lot of the expense for projects, and we can rely on the telemetry that our security tools are giving us to demonstrate that compliance. So we're not taking it out of the process, we're still making sure it's there. We're making sure it's there all the way through, and we can demonstrate it and we can evidence it. And so from an audit point of view, when they come looking, it's all there. Where we have guardrails in place, we can pull compliance reports, we can show adherence to policy, and we still verify that security in projects and the whole experience is different for both projects and the security team.
So I think you can guess already what the benefits already are. Over my career, I have reviewed probably hundreds of different projects, and I've probably seen it all the way from the project that had to pretty much double their costs because they didn't engage the security team till the end, and the rework was horrendously expensive, putting them 100% over their original forecast, through to the other extreme, where I've had projects where the engineers have overdone security. I never thought I would see it, but I did have one meeting where I was sat there going, remove that, remove that, remove that, because it was adding increasing amounts of complexity with little to no security benefit, but there was a perception that it was needed. So if we can do a lot of this, we generate lots of benefits. The costs go down. The engineering teams can work in a more agile way. I have my own benefits. My costs go down. At the moment, I spend a lot of money on security testing, validating that configurations that have been deployed are secure. As we start to roll out these capabilities, that will be automated. So I can then use my security testing teams to do the really interesting and challenging attacks, not a config check. We can accelerate the deployment. The security teams get out of the way. And most importantly, we start to get security right first time. And probably just as important, security is then proportionate. Rather than throwing everything we've got at a project just in case, we've got a lot more information to be able to make proportionate decisions. What's also interesting is it has some longer term benefits when you go into operation as well. If you talk to any of my peers in companies around the globe, patching, security fixes, remediation is something that we all wrestle with. But actually, if we start to adopt these approaches, where we do have a true agile engineering team with security woven through the end-to-end process, suddenly a process like applying a patch is a one-click exercise. You apply the patch, stick it through the CI/CD pipeline, run the tests, and if everything passes, you deploy. We're in a great position. We can do that already for our desktop environment. We can roll out to all 80,000 staff a full new desktop overnight. And we're starting to do that across many of our products and services as well. So there's huge amounts of benefits from Agile that the security team can benefit from. But this is our vision. Fiona, do you want to talk a little bit about how we've made it real?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, we had a system that you would input in lots of information into, and it would point you at the security assessment process. So if you needed an assessment, you went there. We then had a separate tool that you had to fill out more information, and then our assessors would pick up that information and then start to conduct the assessment. That tool wasn't visible to our customers. They couldn't see what progress we were making, they couldn't see the end result, they couldn't see how far through we were, they didn't know who was assigned to their assessment. The two systems were disjointed and not entirely helpful in terms of that customer-facing view. So we had a flawed process. We weren't seeing all of the projects we wanted to see, and there was a lot that we needed to change. So in order to track and manage everything we do and simplify the process, we've built our processes into ServiceNow. We ask a number of really simple questions at the start of the journey for the engineering teams, for the project manager, whoever it is that's engaging with us, to determine whether or not we think they need to go forward to an assessment. Instead of then handing them off to another system, we put all of our assessments through ServiceNow. So straight away, our customers can see where they are in that life cycle of being assessed, if they've got an assessor assigned, and if they're starting to see issues coming out as a result of the assessment that we're conducting. Having it in ServiceNow gives us the ability to start looking at the flexibility of the workflows, and it helps us manage things really nicely, and we can act quickly. If there's something not working, we can change it. And what we've found is it's maybe us that are popular, it's maybe ServiceNow that's popular, but we've had a few teams come to us and say, that's actually really clever the way you've done that. It's saving an awful lot of time, it's made it much simpler for customers, and they can see where you are in your journey. Can we reuse that information that you're collecting and do our own governance journey in ServiceNow. So we've onboarded more teams using the same information that the customers already input, taken a lot of the effort out for them, and it just feeds through to their assessment process. We've done that for teams within security and even some of the teams outside of security that have similar processes in the governance lifecycle. We've onboarded not only other people, other teams, but we're starting to look at what is the other data that we can use that's already in ServiceNow. So we've got our full configuration management database in there. It tells us all the information about the different systems we have across the bank, tells you what they are, who owns them, what servers they have, what different components make them up. And we find that very valuable. We don't need to ask people anymore, tell us about your system. We just link to that information. So again, it takes out the effort for them, and it gives us a lot more information that we can use within the assessment process. And then what we're going to do at the end of the assessment process is save that information somewhere that helps people see where they are in terms of the security posture for that system. So rather than bring in all this information, use it for our own purposes, and then throw it away again and move on to the next time, what our customers will be able to do is see everything that's happened previously. So what information did we tell you before? What information have you pulled in from ServiceNow? What information have you pulled in from all of your other tools? And what were the issues that you found the last time we went through this process? Owners of systems can see the issues and actually plan to remediate the next time a project comes along. So if you're already digging up the road, don't dig it up twice. You might as well get in there and fix some things while you're at it. We're also looking at using the Qualys information we already have. It's feeding in through ServiceNow. So why not have a conduit, a flow from the Qualys information into our security assessment process? Just now we're going manually to Qualys and checking the results. But the vision of the future is that assessors will be able to see it in that single pane of glass for the system that's been updated, that it's already there, it's already dealt with, it's not vulnerable, the project's fine to go ahead. So what we're doing is thinking about what else can we pull in that's not in ServiceNow at the moment. So Chris talked about code scanning and various things. How do we get that information in? Once it's in, how do we consume it in a nice way? And once we've consumed it for our purposes, how do we put it onto this single security record to show the owners any day they like what information we know about them and make sure they're completely up to date with that. Security testing information will go in there. The last time it was security tested will go in there. So again, if a security test is due, they will know before even we do. And we can automate all sorts of helpful things for them, like reminders that they need to do their security tests. So all of a sudden, the effort and the admin comes out of our processes a little bit, and we focus more on the security. So talk to us, Chris, about the future.
I should say, we're not on commission from any of those vendors. They just happen to be the ones we use. So, looking to the future, let's be honest, if I could predict the future, I wouldn't be stood here. I'd have won the lottery. I'd be sunning myself on an island somewhere hot. But I don't think you have to be a fortune teller to be able to make a couple of predictions. The engineering process is becoming increasingly automated. And I believe that brings even more opportunities for us as a security team. And I spend a lot of time with the leaders who are building our future pipelines, looking at how we can hook what their vision of the future to try and bring the security benefit to us, and also to put better guardrails into the solutions they're building. I won't use the word AI, sorry, I did, but machine learning advances. I think they bring lots of opportunities for us as well. So as we collect more data, we're going to need more intelligent ways to process and analyze that data, identify trends, find common mistakes, and then proactively feed back to the engineering community what they can do differently to get it right first time. And I can see machine learning having a huge role to play in that space. I think we'll also see increased integration. So our strategy, the bank strategy, is to use built-in security where it's available. The days of bolting on security are gone, long time behind us. I believe that adds unnecessary complexity rather. There'll be occasions where you do have to add security because the default isn't good enough. But where possible, we try to use the default security. And again, that brings us benefits. We can use the APIs, we can use the inherent interfaces, and I think that will bring us huge benefits in the future. At the end of the day, the bad folk will continue to give me sleepless nights. So what I'm striving to do is to build a common team where security and engineering work together to build, deploy, and operate a really secure bank that protects us, and most importantly, our customers. So to wrap that all up, a bit of what you've heard today is a bit aspirational. It is our North Star. We have done some of it we have more work to do. We have done a huge amount of work on the cultural side. To get us where we are today, the first thing I had to do was win over the CIOs, the leaders for the technology teams, especially as I've got a group function. So it's not just one technology team, it's technology teams across the entire group. I've got them on side, and now we're working together, and that is how we're managing to deliver some of this. In the old days of security stood at one side, throwing rocks, just alienated us. By getting in with the engineering teams, demonstrating our credentials and our knowledge, we've been able to get to the point where now we're making a real difference, and the security is woven into the way we work. Questions?
Oh, is that it? Right, good. Thank you very much. Questions was not a request, it was a demand. So who has a question? Gentleman here right at the very front. Can we get a microphone to this gentleman here, please? Second row. Thank you. If you could identify yourself, please, sir.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Chris. Fiona. My name is Obi. I'm with Accenture. Question is, in the financial services sector, the pace of innovation, as you know, can be a competitive advantage. We've talked about enabling the business to be more innovative, but with some of what we've heard even today about like AI co-pilot, there's an awareness that the risk is evolving quite quickly, and there are unknown risks, so unknown unknowns. How do you then ensure that you're enabling the business to continue to innovate at pace while accounting for those unknown risks?
So you're right, there's a huge pace of change in the financial sector, and things like AI, co-pilot, other new technologies. I think you were playing with the Apple augmented reality glasses the other day. The way that we keep on top of that is by working with the technology teams. So I sit around a table with the CIO and the CDIOs that run all of the technology teams. So we have full visibility of their strategy and what they're doing. The head of innovation is a peer of mine, and we meet regularly and we talk about the things they're doing. By having that approach, we know what's coming down the line and we can prepare. So we do have the large language models deployed in the bank. We're using them. We've security assessed them. We've red teamed them. But we did that in collaboration with our data teams, and we worked hand in hand. And that meant we could do it really quickly. But it's also had the benefit that we know the tools really well now, which is why we're able to look at them and say there's some security benefits. There's some security use cases as well. And by getting them into the bank really quickly in a safe and secure way, everyone is benefiting. But if you don't work with the teams that are doing that work, you will get left behind, which is why I think it's really important that I, as a CISO, and Fiona, in her role, that we sit alongside the engineering teams. So if you come, if any of you have the fortune to come and visit us in Gogarburn, my desk, I'm surrounded by engineers, not the security team. I can see the security team, but I'm probably sat closer to the engineers than I am the security folk. And that's good. I hear what they're doing, and we talk, and they pick my brain, and we have all sorts of great conversations.
Another question from the floor. Gentleman there. Sorry, that's not on. Hang on. Try that again.
Hello, is this on? Oh,
yeah,
hello.
That's working.
I'm very much on the engineering side, and I think I speak with a lot of engineers where the security team is still the big boogeyman in the corner that you get emails from, and then every so often you get pen test bugs coming in from, and like there is that big bang approach of security gets done at the end. Are you approaching it in the terms of almost like what a lot of dev teams doing now, where you've got developers and QAs and like sometimes infrastructure engineers all embedded in the same team, and maybe have like a security like engineer embedded in the team, or is it still very much you're your own team and you just kind of come in when needed? So it's trying to like, how do you foster that collaboration between you?
So what we're trying to do is train train the engineers in security, so they know what to look for, they know how to deal with it, and they know how to avoid it in the first place. We're looking at how we can start to thread that training on a regular basis through the course of the year at different points, but not just picking a topic and going with it, actually using the information, again back to the information that we're storing on all the different projects. Okay, what were the most frequently found issues, and how can we create training for the engineering community so that we can feed that back in, and then they're more aware of it and they'll avoid it the next time. So it's more about, rather than embedding our security teams into projects, that would cost us a fortune in terms of resource. So we're trying to just bring the skills and the knowledge of the engineering teams up so that they know how to deal with it better.
We also have, in some of the bigger teams, we also have what we call security champions.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of people around the engineering community who have got a genuine interest in security, and we give them the support and the training and access to the central experts so they can take that back and influence the way products have been designed. And that's been really successful as well. And there are engineers who actually do like what we do. It is an interesting topic. So we run things like security testing courses. So a number of our engineers have actually learned ethical hacking, and then they're taking that knowledge back into their teams, and suddenly they realize where that mutual benefit is from some of the changes that we're asking for. So it's a little bit of hearts and minds, a bit of cultural change. We certainly haven't cracked it, but I think we've made some really good inroads on it.
You spoke earlier about fully automated decision making. And again, this is maybe a dopey question. Bear in mind, I'm not from your industry. Is it possible for a fully automated decision to be wrong? And if the answer to that is yes, who is then responsible?
So if you have tested the automation, in theory not, but it could be. And that's where we have the verification. So even the stuff that we deploy in a fully automated way, we will still have additional checks afterwards to minimize the chance of something going wrong. So it's about that trust and verify. We'll trust the systems, we'll trust the decisions, we'll trust the information it's based on, but we will still have a verify after the event just to make sure that things haven't gone wrong and to feed back changes that we might need to do to the end-to-end process. But today, we're all human. It's a human-run process. Humans make mistakes. So I don't think that's any different. It's just quicker.
Okay. Folks, I'm tempted to leave it there, so could you thank Chris and Fiona one more time, please? Thank you.